So now we come to the man who is looked to by Indians and by the world to close that gap, the gap between the potential of India and the promise and the future and the reality of India. The country who, 5,000 years ago had the world's bleeding edge sanitation and sewage systems that now has 800 million people who don't have access to a toilet. A country where girls drop out at the end of primary school at 3 times the rate of boys, because the boys can manage without a toilet at school, but the girls find it a lot harder to do. This is an indictment. It's a limit on human potential, it's an indictment on the country, and it's a serious indicator of just how behind India really is, compared especially to its potential. And the man to whom everybody turns, and all the expectations are now weighing, of course, is the new Prime Minister, Narendra Modi. Modi's been in power a year this month. On one hand, he looks like the perfect candidate to raise India's potential, because he's a kid who came from the wrong side of the tracks, the son of a tea-walla who has demonstrated his ability to rise to the top based on merit rather than privilege. His performance as the Chief Minister in Gujarat was his main claim to fame and the record on which he based his campaign. In the state of Gujarat, where he was Chief Minister, he established a climate in favour of business investment, became known as a go-ahead state, with strong growth, strong investment, and including strong investment in some social infrastructure. It wasn't all just about the private sector. There was also big investments in healthcare and other sectors that have given India a working model for hope, a working model for the hope that now Modi can do for the country what he did for his state. But there's also the other side of the Modi record in the state of Gujarat, and that's the intercommunal rioting, as they call it, which is, in our terms, we probably just call it bloodshed and mayhem and murder, where in a series of attacks that went on for several days, well over a couple of thousand people were killed in rioting between the Muslim and Hindu population. The big question is Modi's personal culpability for this mayhem and the deaths and the carnage. The Indian judicial system looked into this. There have been 60 different trials and inquiries looking into the Gujarat riots that occurred under Modi's time as governor, as Chief Minister rather. None of them found direct culpability, and yet there was enough of a bad look that most countries in Western Europe and the US put a visa ban on Modi. He was not allowed to visit. The Americans only lifted that visa ban at the time that he became Prime Minister of the world's largest democracy and had an irresistible claim to travel to the US. That left a bad smell around Modi, and yet we see him elected with a record approval rating and the first government in 30 years in India to win an outright majority in the lower house of parliament. Indians have decided that they're going to give him the benefit of the doubt, that the hope exceeds the doubt, and he is now invested with all of the hopes of India that it can break from its cycle of stalled potential and hopelessness